Hey, what's up? So I recently competed in another fitness competition. I've done a video sharing that I competed in High Rocks with my husband. But back on June 21st, my husband and a group of us from Orangetheory went to Concord, North Carolina, and we competed in something called DEKA Fit. And then also on July 6th, we competed in another portion of the competition called DEKA Mile. So for me, DEKA Fit or the DEKA events are similar to High Rocks. You have, well, for the DEKA Fit, you have 10 zones. So for the same, similar to High Rocks, where they call it functional exercises. In between those zones, you're running. So for DEKA Fit, the total is about a 5K, so 3.1 miles. For the DEKA Mile, you still do those 10 zones, same rep count, but in between your run is a little shorter and it equals a mile, as well as they have something just called DEKA Strong, and you're just doing the 10 functional exercise or 10 zones. Well, we competed in the DEKA Fit, which is the, I guess if you would say progressively do it, I would do the DEKA Strong, which is just the exercises, then do the DEKA Mile, which is the 10 zones, as well as a mile run, and then the DEKA Fit, which is the 10 zones plus about a 3.1 5K in between, broken up like High Rocks. With the, you start off running, then you go into a zone, and then you run again, and then you go into a zone. So again, similar concept. It's not as popular because it's not as many people that participate in it, as well as, and that could be because of the venue that they use, as well as like spectators. Like that's a big deal. It's a lot of people at the High Rocks events. So again, we participated in the one in Concord, North Carolina on June 21st. That was the first one. We did it solo. We started together as a group, and again, we kind of trickled off as we went. And at the end of the race, everyone gets a t-shirt, a finisher's t-shirt, as well as a medal. So this is the one that I received for DEKA Fit. This is the finisher's medal. So this is the medal, and then this little piece is part of what they call a trifecta. So if you complete all three, they all go together. So they're magnetic, so it like sticks together. And then so because I did two and I'm just missing the third piece. Well, DEKA Fit was at a venue in North Carolina. DEKA Mile, we participated at a CrossFit gym, and that did not hold as many people. That wasn't as organized. They got, I think we were behind, I want to say an hour or two. So pre-workout had worn off, and I'd asked, and they had done it before there. So clearly it wasn't new to them, but I'm not sure what happened. And I think that we saw some people that the husband who did High Rocks with us, he had done the day before, which was they had them both the same weekend, the DEKA Fit, and then on a Saturday, and then on the Sunday they had the DEKA Mile. Well, he did the Saturday DEKA Fit, and he said they were running about an hour or so behind. So not sure about that. And again, I just wish we had known. I would have waited to do my pre-workout and brought more food to eat in between if I knew they were going to be running behind. But as I was saying, you do get finisher's medal for all your races, and then the piece in the center and the trifecta, it just means that you have completed all three events for the DEKA. Well, we didn't do it Saturday, and it's coming up, I think in October. They have it at that same gym as well as a different gym a little bit further out, about 20 miles. So we may possibly try the other CrossFit gym just to get the third medal, and maybe they're a little bit more organized. But needless to say, we are so excited that we did finish it. This was the DEKA Fit t-shirt. They all say DEKA Fit finisher, and it says 5K, 10 zones. And then this is the DEKA Mile t-shirt, pretty much the same thing, just says DEKA Mile. So I have my 2 finishers shirts, as well as my 2 medals, and then 2 parts of the trifecta. I just have to finish the DEKA strong. So what are the 10 zones? Again, similar to high rocks, when you first do your lap, you go into zone 1, and zone 1, you start with alternating lunges. It's weighted, and you have a line where at the DEKA Fit event, you had a line where you had to lunge behind this line. Again, the DEKA Mile was a little bit more lax, and they switched out some of the stations compared to because I guess equipment wise, compared to what we did for the DEKA Fit, and I'll share what the difference was. So you started off, you did your run, and then you came in, you did the alternating lunges, then you ran again. In between, for the DEKA Fit, it was a 500-meter run in between each station. In between the DEKA Mile, it was a 160-meter run, so completely different distance. And after you ran, the second station was a row. You did a 500-meter row, which again, high rocks is 1,000 meters, so a little bit less. And then you ran again, and then the third station was the box jump, and that one at the DEKA Fit, it was unstable, and so I took my time going back and forth over that, because it was just the box that they used was an unstable surface, and I wanted to make sure like I did not face plant, twist my ankle, do anything crazy. So I took my time going back and forth over that. For the DEKA Mile, they had a typical box that was stable, so I could move a little quicker. Now, whether I did, I'm not sure, but at least I felt a little bit more secure for the DEKA Mile event. After the box jump overs, you then went to the med ball sit-ups, and that, compared to high rocks, I would say wall ball, I would take the sit-up any day over that. I think it was 25 med ball sit-ups. That wasn't too bad. I started off a little too further back when I did it for the DEKA Fit, and then I scooted a little bit closer to it, and then you had to tap back, hit the ground behind you, and then hit the target, and then keep doing that. That one wasn't as bad. And then station 5 was the ski erg, and again, I did it before at high rocks, although I didn't train specifically for DEKA because I'd done high rocks and I just started doing my Orangetheory workouts. I really didn't train for DEKA Fit or DEKA Mile, and because, like I said, I'd just done high rocks not too long before, I just went into it. And again, I think with all these events, mainly the running is the main part. I think it's more the running for the high rocks, but for the DEKA Fit, because it's a 5K, again, longer runs. And then the DEKA Mile wasn't as bad. It was more or less getting through the stations if you're worrying about your time more quickly. So the ski erg was 500 meters, half of what high rocks is. After the ski erg was the farmer's carry. It was a 100-meter farmer's carry, and I want to say it was 40 pounds in each hand, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot, but of course I'll include some of the video so you can see what the weight. For me, that station wasn't as bad as like the air bike. Now that I had done only one other time when I went and visited another gym with a couple girlfriends, and that was the first time I ever got on one of those. So that was a little bit difficult. The air bike was station 7, right after the farmer's carry, and you had to go 25 calories. So they started it for you and then immediately got on, and then you knew you were done once it, I think, got to 0 or 25. I think it automatically stopped. So that was the air bike. Zone 8 was 20 dead ball wall overs, where again you had a weighted bag where you had this stand and you just had to push it over side to side, and you had to step inside the little I guess stand portion of it. When we were warming up, someone told us like they had gotten tips where you could just stand on the outside and then move it from side to side. But once one of the judges or somebody that was over it, we stopped and asked him a question, and then they specifically let us know that we had to go inside the outside of the stand. that we were pushing it back and forth over. And also the judges reminded you once you got to the station that you had to step inside of it to push the bag back and forth. Zone 9 was a 100-meter tank push and pull. And I want to say we went down and back, I want to say 5 times, if I'm not mistaken. That was a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. That was one of the hardest stations, again, with the air bike. And sometimes you wonder like why they put certain things in certain orders. But I was like, that was challenging, especially coming from the air bike, and then, which I use, I guess, mostly upper body, pushing it, and then pulling it. No, I use my lower body, but that, the tank pushing and pulling that was one of the more challenging stations. It ended with 20 of the RAM burpees. So you had to make sure you extended your arm all the way up and then bring it down. Your chest had to touch, and you had to do that 20 times. And that was right at the end. And then you ran across the finish line, got your medal, got your shirt. And then that was it. So again, like I said, similar to High Rocks, if you compare or look at the two, again, about half of what you do for High Rock. When it came to the DEKA Mile, they didn't have the dead ball wallovers that you push the weighted bag over. They had a ball where you had to push it over your shoulder. That was the only difference, I think, in the stations when comparing the two. And again, probably because obviously they didn't have that they didn't have that like they had the setup at the DEKA Fit. So I think if you're getting into these type of races, I would probably start with the DEKA events first. I would go DEKA Strong, again, no running, the DEKA Mile, which is the 10 zones with 1 mile broken up in between, and then try the DEKA Fit, which is the 10 zones with a 5K, again, broken up with 500 meters in between, and then maybe transition to High Rocks and see the difference in the two, because again, it is a lot more. You have, even though you have 8 stations or 8 functional exercises with 5 miles in between, like that's a big difference. So I think it would be a good idea to start with the DEKA events, and then start with DEKA Strong and then move on up. So I think we're going to try and do probably DEKA Strong locally when they do it again. I think it's in October, if I'm not mistaken. It's 2 different dates at 2 different CrossFit gyms. So we'll go ahead and do that so we can complete the trifecta. Like I said, it's pretty cool that if you stick them together, it's magnetic. It's probably easier on the surface where it'll stay, but as you can tell, it's staying together. But that's pretty cool. You do get all 3 pieces, and then of course the finisher's medal, and then the t-shirt. So like I said, we'll complete that hopefully the end of the year. And let me know if you have any questions about DEKA Strong, DEKA Mile, DEKA Fit, any of the DEKA events, as well as High Rocks. So anyways, please like and subscribe, and I will see you on my next video. Bye.